My name is Franklin Cudjoe. I'm Ghanaian. My think tank's name is IMANI Center for Policy and Education. It's based in Ghana as well, but we tend to focus a bit more on the African continent as well. There's a certain global narrative that the current economic challenge around the world is caused by Russia, Ukraine, and then some are COVID. In the case of Ghana, though, COVID and maybe Russia and Ukraine war played a minute role, 20% maximum. 80% of the economic challenges we have right now are solely due to mismanagement of the economy by the government. We're currently in an IMF program, which means that the economy has not been managed well. As we speak, inflation is close to 40%. It used to be 54% about a month ago, which essentially made it the third highest on the continent. Interest rates are really crazy, double digits, around 30, almost 40%. The currency fluctuates like and waves like a flag, and currently the life generally has become totally difficult. Everybody's purchasing power has been rendered pretty useless, really. Taxes constitute, if not 45 to 50% of a normal business operations. It's just not. There's no way you can breathe as an entrepreneur. The barriers have been erected by government against its own people. What is more protectionist than, trying to exact close to 45% tax from an entrepreneur in order to invest in an area of an economy that you have zero accountability? You're actually robbing people and put it in an entity where you can virtually steal the money without accountability. Well, our major exports are cocoa, from which chocolate is made. Incidentally, I eat a lot of good chocolate here than when I'm in Ghana. Which speaks to the whole issue about adding value to cocoa, which again begins with lifting those barriers that have been imposed on entrepreneurs within the country. Because the only way you would be able to trade across borders is when the cost of your doing business is lower. I mean, Nigeria, next door neighbor, doesn't have dizzying interest rate, double-digit interest rate for entrepreneurs. Even though it's so difficult in Nigeria to actually be an entrepreneur, ours is almost 40%. Nigeria is not. So imagine you have a nice commodity you want to add value to, and then trade across borders. By the time it gets to Nigeria, it will be too expensive. The competitor there would undercut you because your own local inhibitions erected by your government is actually the reason why you can't lift yourself out, and then basically trade across or cross within the continent as well. So the barriers is not just having government reduce barriers, trade barriers per se, as in all these tariffs and all of that, but it begins with our local government themselves, internal government actually doing a lot more of the work. Next year will be 20 years when I founded the organization. I came to those ideas, I would say libertarian free market ideas, the ideas of Hayek and Bastiat, the French economist and journalist. And I thought that the ideas contained in there were somehow some sort of an antithesis to the kinds of planning or central planning that had been taught in my school days. All these ideas actually with pre-colonial Africa, were with pre-colonial Africans as well. The ideas of freedom, trade across border, because we're trading goods. Gold was being exchanged from Tagaza in Zimbabwe, and then salt and ivory were exchanged. So there was some form of trade, which then informed my forming of the think tank, because the idea for me was that if we could push the institutions of the free society and argue out that, look, limited government, open markets, decent basically rule of law can all encourage human flourishing, then we'd have no excuse to say that, well, we have not been taking care of ourselves when it comes to ideas. Because these ideas, I said, are not even original with our Western counterpart. They're actually original with us as well, pre-colonial Africa. We do policy analysis based on budget, macroeconomic analysis. We sort of subject government project programs and policies to some tools, critical tools, basically value for money analysis, with the whole idea that we want to shine light to some of the things that government could do without necessarily investing in their so much money in a particular system or a particular process. So we focus on taxes, trade, healthcare. But lately, we've also been looking at the value chains for certain commodities like cocoa. The IATP, we certainly believe in free trade, and we thought that anywhere trade is being, hampered deliberately, we need to basically talk about it. The IATP basically got involved. We at the time had a story in Ghana that we shared with them, which is essentially that the Ghanaian traders, local traders, basically those who trade in imported wares, were saying that Nigerians should get out of the market because Nigerians were too much competition. And we got involved in that work and shared with the IATP. We told them that they should be dealing rather with the government, because the government, that is the sole reason for their predicament. But the challenge was the Nigerians could borrow at competitive interest rates and trade across the borders and come and sell in our markets. Then Ghana wanted to use protectionist policies to say you can't sell in our market because you're a Nigerian. But the truth of the matter is that we told the traders that just compare Ghana and Nigeria. They borrow at probably 15% or 12%. You borrow at 40%. What do you think is going to happen? So even if you sack them, Ghanaians will find other means of getting the goods from them. So we shared that story with our colleagues here, and we did some collaborations. There was some sort of a webinar which we got involved and discussed this stuff with them, and it's still an ongoing project actually. Yeah, it used to be the case when we held student programs. Held it in about 14 African countries already. Those times there were testimonies from students who later, and I remember one of them who said, look, for the rest of my life, the seeds of liberty that have been sown in me would bear fruit. And when I look back at that guy's life, and he's working in one of these big banks, and he still remembers the fact that the ideas he took from basically listening to the likes of Ayn Rand being explained, or how free markets can basically defeat poverty, those things still resonate with him. Look, I mean, if all these barriers are reduced, certainly, free trade would have had its pride of place in lifting many million Ghanaians out of poverty.